Well, James, it's official. Capital One has received the go-ahead from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency and the Federal Reserve to purchase Discover.
Wow.
And it's
Okay.
gonna the deal's supposed to close pretty soon, May 18th. I mean,
Oh,
that's
wow. That's really
that's
fast.
really fast. I haven't seen one that fast in a long time.
Yeah, for a deal that big, I mean, that's really quick.
Yeah, they must have done a lot of work in the background.
Yeah.
But obviously it's going to bring heightened competition into the payments business. But, Rich Fairbank, who was the founder and he's also the president and CEO, I think, of Capital One.
Hmm.
He said something there was a video that accompanied the press release, and it kind of reminded me of our conversation last week. Remember last week we were talking about, is this going to be competition for the banks, or is it going to be competition for Visa and MasterCard?
Right, right.
So I after watching this video a few times, I think it's the latter. I mean, he said, quote,
Yeah.
this deal accelerates our long-standing journey to work directly with merchants to leverage our customer base and data to drive more sales for merchants and greater deals for consumers and small businesses.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's both. I think it's really like a good way to think of it in my mind is they're trying to compete with Chase, right? But
Right?
doing it at an even higher level. So when you think about Chase, when
Right?
you look at a merchant statement like a Chase, a merchant that's a banking customer of Chase,
Right?
when they process Chase cards, they're in their own category. Chase is running those over obviously their own network because they're doing the
Their own
issuing
net.
and the acquiring.
Right.
Whereas with this, it's like a whole other level because it's like they're gonna literally own the card network. So it's not even with,
Right.
with Chase, that still is a Visa card. I believe it's a Visa that they use. So it's still a Visa
Yeah.
card. Whereas
Right.
with this, Capital One, it's like they literally own the card network that they're using. I mean, that's
And it's
very,
gonna,
very
yeah,
powerful.
and it's not gonna just be Discover cards that are gonna be running over that network.
So is that right? I would think that it would still be Discover. So
No, that's what I'm saying. Yes, it would be.
I see. Oh, I see what you're saying. It would be just so it's still that you have the Discover cards are running. But what's going to happen is you're gonna basically take a bank and supercharge a bank and take a card network and supercharge a card network at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really great
Which
deal. I haven't seen a deal that had more synergy than this in a long time because there's so much overlap, you
there's
know?
so much, so much. I'm like, and obviously, like I said, with something that's gonna close that fast, it's obviously they've been working the logistics for
Oh
a
yeah.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, definitely be a very interesting one to watch and see how it turns out. But I feel like if they can execute on this, it's going to be a fantastic transaction for both sides. So
Well,
really
and
cool.
it's really interesting when you think about it, because Discover started like 40 years ago as an experiment by Sears Roebuck and Company.
Mm.
They were the ones that launched Discover. It was a
I didn't
big
know that
deal.
actually. That's
Yeah, it was a
interesting.
big deal. It was launched during Super Bowl. It was like one of those big Super Bowl announcements.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, yeah. And
Interesting.
then, Sears at the time was the largest retailer in the country.
Sure.
So, it launches its own network. Well, as time goes on, Sears loses, Sears had a whole financial services unit. It also had a
Mm.
brokerage. Dean Witter was part of Sears.
Really?
And
Wow, I did not know
yeah,
that.
yeah. So it had all
Mm.
this stuff going on, and then it had to slowly cut out all of its
Wow. Mm.
financial aspects, and then
Right.
so it's just interesting to me to see it
Yeah, see
become
it going.
go full circle
Yeah.
like that.
Mm. So interesting. All right,
So
Patty, what's our
okay,
next one?
our next up is Visa is going to have its a product drop. It just announced a product drop for April 30th. It's going to be, it says this will be its 2025 roadmap for transforming the way consumers shop and buy with AI.
Wow. Okay.
So it's going to be CEO Ryan McInerney and the Chief Product and Strategy Officer Jack Forstall are going to unveil new products, solutions, and technology partners, which they say are poised to transform the next generation of commerce.
Wow.
You know, uh, I just was very taken by the fact that it's going to dive into this world of AI commerce,
I love it. I mean, like I'm assuming one of their partners is going to be OpenAI, I would imagine.
I would
Um,
imagine.
kind of a
Sure.
no-brainer. I mean, at this point, you can go in there, you can go to ChatGPT and you can find the product that you want to buy. You just can't
Yeah,
buy it.
right.
And I'm sure that long-term OpenAI wants to control that transaction experience
Can
as well. So,
can you see? Yeah, I mean, it would be a perfect.
yeah, in many ways, what I'll tell you what's really interesting about that. I hadn't thought of it in this way before, but it's like when you think about ChatGPT, primarily I've thought of them as a new innovation and a
Right,
major competitor to Google. Like
right.
I don't use Google anymore ever. I really don't.
I
Um,
use them both.
yeah, I'm done. Like every time I've used Google in the last 6 months, I've been like, why did I just do that? I could have used ChatGPT and it would be so much better. So I use ChatGPT, but what's interesting is they're also a potential competitor to Amazon. Because when you think about Amazon,
Mm, yeah,
Amazon is basically an e-commerce platform where you go to find the things you want to buy and you can easily purchase them. Well,
right.
why couldn't ChatGPT become that, right? Because
Sure.
you're going to search for the products. They're a lot better at searching for them than Amazon. And so it's like, oh, I
Right.
can find the product, or maybe they're even going to do deals with companies like Amazon because now you can search Amazon anyway, and they'll be like, hey, here's a link to the product you want to buy on Amazon. It's like, well, I want to be able
Sure.
to buy that right here on OpenAI on ChatGPT. So yeah, that's going to
That's
be
a
very interesting. Yeah,
that's an interesting take. I hadn't really thought about that, and and especially because Amazon, like you say, it's a platform that brings a lot of merchants together, but there's a
yeah,
lot. When I
yeah.
go searching, I'll look at Amazon, but I'll do a Google or a Chat GTP also because I know, well,
Right.
look at, I might be able to get a better deal.
Right, exactly. Yep. And when you have
you know
ChatGPT like crawling the internet finding all the best deals, I think for them to create an e-commerce platform is a bit of a no-brainer. They're
yeah,
gonna an
yeah,
AI first e-commerce platform is probably gonna happen. So that's gonna be very
yeah,
interesting as
yeah.
well. Okay,
I
well
definitely see that.
that's a really interesting one. All right, what's our next one?
Our next one is the ACH. It's every year about this time they announce their growth, and they've been charting some impressive growth.
Hmm.
They had they let's let's say they began. I'm sort of saying they began 2025 with a bang. 326 million same day payments valued at nearly $1 trillion for the first quarter.
Wow.
That's a 19% increase over Q1 of 2024.
Wow. And that's just the same day?
That's just the same day.
Wow, that's crazy.
In all, the ACH handled 8.5 billion transactions,
Right.
valued at $22 trillion.
Hmm.
So, you know, that was really like a small part of the total.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I remember the days when 326 million was a lot for the whole ACH to do.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
So
crazy. That really is pretty crazy.
that's pretty.
It's such a huge opportunity. And it's so interesting because we record these separate from the episodes, but I'm pretty sure this one's going
Right.
out with our one where I interviewed the Paylines talking about ACH.
Oh,
So
perfect.
yeah, so it fits in, but I think ACH is such a huge opportunity anyway.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
talk about that in this episode, but it's like such a big opportunity, and I think this just underscores that form of value exchange is not going anywhere. It's a big one.
No, and especially for the B2B. I mean,
Absolutely, such a
you know,
huge
B
opportunity. Yeah.
B2B showed growth of 9% in terms of transactions
Mm.
and totaled 1.9 billion. Of these, 125 million were healthcare claims from insurers.
Huh, oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Which kind of goes again with something we talked about last week with, the healthcare and the claims.
Right.
Uh, that's a big opportunity.
Yeah.
P2P payments passed the 100 million mark for the first time, which is
Wow.
pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't think of the ACH for P2P, but
But
uh,
that's what it's using behind the scenes, right? That's the rails
right.
it's running on behind the scenes.
Right, running behind the
Yeah.
scenes.
Right.
And it's really interesting because, direct deposit was what the ACH was originally, it was sort of like the first application, right?
Right.
It was the only category where the transactions fell. It was
Yeah.
about a 0.3% decline, which is not a big
Mm.
decline, but
Right.
when you consider things like, 19% increase, $1 trillion. I mean, that
Right.
yeah,
Absolutely.
clearly that's the B2B is driving it right now.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Good stuff. All right. I think we have one more today, right? You have
One
four?
more today, one
Okay.
more, and I alluded to this last week. WorldPay for the past decade has been collecting payment data from around the world,
Sure.
and I often use this data in my reporting.
Yeah.
So recently, executives from WorldPay took their data sets to Capitol Hill, to Washington,
Okay.
to show lawmakers, to give them sort of like
Some
a
context.
lesson in payments,
Yeah.
right? And I wanted to just kind of give you sort of like some high level data that they were that they
Sure.
shared.
Right.
Globally, e-commerce spend more than tripled in the 10 years ending in 2024.
Wow. Yeah.
In 2014, consumers spent $1.2 trillion online, which was a lot in 2014,
Right. Right.
right? But 10 years later, they spent $6.8 trillion,
Wow.
which is like almost a 600% increase, right?
Right.
Am I doing
Yep.
my math correct? Okay. The share of global e-commerce spending done using smartphones also tripled from 19% in 2014 to 57% last year,
So wait,
which
wait, hold
which
on. So
actually
you're
surprises
saying,
me.
wait, so what are you saying? You're saying last year you're saying 57% of what? 57% of e-commerce ran mobile phone or what was that?
Of e-commerce. Of
So 2014 e-commerce 19% or whatever
Right,
was on the
was
phone,
using
was
smartphones.
using smartphones. Last year 50 something percent using smartphones.
Right.
Wow. Okay. I mean, yeah, that doesn't surprise me, but it's still a staggering number.
It's a staggering number. It surprises me only because I don't know. I like bigger screens when I'm looking at something. I
Yeah, yeah,
mean,
yeah. Sure.
somebody sent
Yeah.
me something the other day, yesterday, and I was like, no, let me jot down that URL. I got to look at that.
Right, right, right.
I'll get a
Well, you know
better
what?
look at that.
So this is so interesting, Patty. So let me pull a thread back around, okay?
Okay,
So
sure.
going back to ChatGPT, right? So think about this for a
Right.
minute. The
Uh-huh.
only the only reason that you care, like it's not that you actually want a bigger screen. What you want is you want to be able to see all of the options so that you can make the best choice,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Right.
with AI is going to be better at making that choice than you are. So when you think about how
Yeah.
you're going to find products, it's actually, as a general rule, all of these kind of think about shopping, think about creating a trip itinerary, all of that. It's
Uh-huh.
actually the best way to do it is when I do those kind of things, I walk over to my assistant and we have a conversation, and she says, "Well,
Right.
the different options are you could go Southwest, you could go this, you could fly private. This is and it's like here's the cost." And then I
Right.
say, "Oh, okay, I kind of like this option. What about the hotels?" And she says, "Well, you could do this hotel." And then when we're all done, I walk away from the desk. She books everything for me, right? That's
Right.
ideal. Well,
Right.
if AI can bring that experience to everybody to say, just have a conversation. So when you're looking for a product, you don't need a big
So what if
screen.
I'm saying, okay, I'm looking for a new lawnmower, let's say,
Right.
right? Which is something actually I am looking for.
Right. So
Looking for
instead
a
of,
new
and
lawnmower.
think about it this way. You asked that question. Instead of showing you a screen with 18 different lawnmowers, it says, well, let me ask you some more questions, Patty. What are you using this lawnmower for?
Um,
How big is your yard? Right? How
yeah,
much do you want to
yeah.
spend? And as the AI, as ChatGPT would fully understand what you're looking for, it then serves up the perfect lawnmower or maybe the perfect two or three. You no longer
That's
need the big screen. So
sure,
that's
sure.
why I'm saying that's why I said earlier that I could see ChatGPT competing with Amazon because it's technically that conversational experience, in my opinion,
Right?
is actually a better shopping experience anyway.
No, I 100% agree with you. I hadn't thought about it in that term, in those terms, but you're right because it is. It's like asking me. It won't show me the stuff that I have absolutely no interest in.
Right. It's you
Right?
don't in other words it's not that you want a lot of options. What you want is you want to find the perfect lawnmower, right?
Right.
And
Right.
it's just that with the current options available to you of shopping, it's like if I can see more options, I'm going to make a better choice,
Right.
right?
Right.
But as people get more and more comfortable using AI for that, it's like no, actually AI is going to make a better choice for me because I'm going to give it all the information, it's going to ask me all
Yep.
the relevant questions, and then AI is going to crawl the whole internet and find the best deal for me.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay.
So,
I'm psyched. I'm
there
psyched
you
for
go.
that.
So I'm just tying these threads together here.
Yeah, you're good at that. You're good at that. Okay. The other thing, wallets. Digital wallets. They accounted for 53% of e-commerce spend in 2024 and
Mm.
for 32% of point of sale spending.
Ooh, okay.
That's
Wow.
a lot.
That's a ton.
Almost a third of POS spending was with wallets.
Mm.
And then one
So,
last statistic.
just to clarify for our listeners, I think I
Sure.
understand. You're talking about Google Wallet, Apple Pay,
Right.
etc. Okay,
Right.
got it.
Exactly. Yeah. Not. Yeah. And in the old days, it was my leather wallet.
I know. I just wanted to clarify so everybody knew what you. Yeah.
So yeah, for the people that are my
Uh,
age, see digital ones, not the leather
yeah.
ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so one last statistic I wanted to share. Global account to account spending is projected to balloon to $936 billion by 2030,
Mm,
compared to 152 billion back in 2014. So
right.
that just shows you, you know, and we all know that a lot of that account to account spending, or P2P spending, as it's also called, you
Right.
know, is is not just between Patty and James. It's
Right.
between, Patty and CC Sales Pro, or you know,
Right.
it's
Exactly.
it's right. So the bottom line, I think, and this is what WorldPay was saying to the folks in Washington, is digital payments really do hold the key to unlocking global growth.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
everything now is going to be, I mean, when you and I talk about this in another year or two, it's going to be it's all going to be digital payments.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's
even
crazy.
I carry less cash than I used to carry. I still
Yeah.
carry some. My
Right.
nephew came by. My nephew got married the other day, and he stopped by. I wanted to see him and his brother. He's in the military. He came home,
Sure.
got
Sure.
married. Wanted to see them. Well, I had $100 bill. Stick it in an envelope, because,
Right.
right? I mean,
Right.
that showed
It's
something.
it did. It's still the truth of the matter is, whether it's just the history of human interaction that we're fighting against, I mean, that just feels better than saying, "Hey, I want to Venmo you $100 for your wedding." It
Right,
just doesn't
right.
feel as
It
good. I
just
don't know
doesn't.
why.
It's not tangible.
It's
It's
not
not
tangible.
tangible.
It's a little awkward. It's like, "Oh no, I don't want you to have to do that." No, no, no. Hold your phone up here so I can it's like,
Right.
really? I don't know. It doesn't feel the
Yeah.
same.
No,
So,
no, no.
yeah,
I
I agree.
agree. And I actually thought about that. It's like, oh, I could Venmo him some money, but I
It just
have a
doesn't feel the
card
same.
here. I have a wedding card here. Why don't I
Right.
just
Why don't I put the money in the card?
in the card?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So,
Interesting. Well, Patty,
so
this has been fascinating. I just love the Today in Payments. I want to remind everybody again, go to todayinpayments.com. What you're going to be able to do there is actually just see these little sessions that we do, stay up to date on the latest payments knowledge, and of course, always just keep listening to the Merchant Sales Podcast, and we'll bring them to you
by,
every week.
by all means,
Thanks,
thanks,
Patty.
James.